Okay, so my specific thing is daily vibes. That's where my project is, and we're going to show in the sequential diagram first. And basically, what we did is we're going to have different participants for each specific phase, because my code or like my sequence diagram itself, the outline of it is basically four phases in itself. And the first phase, basically similar to your code when or your sequence diagram that you provided, we're gonna have a delivery form. In itself, we're gonna have the browser basically with the app server, and the app server in itself, like we know, it's the brains, and the browser in itself is going to try to connect to our brains, the app server, and in order for this to happen, we need to deliver it, and therefore we're going to use HTTP verb itself gets, and then we're also going to send it. Basically, this is the port saying this is my specific port, which our port is going to be 5501. It goes to our app server in itself, and then once the app server receives that, then it's gonna, if there's no error in itself, then it's going to say give us a good signal, like a thumbs up in itself, and then it's gonna tell us this is the type of content you're gonna receive, which in our case is HTML contents in itself. So then after this process, we're going to phase two. Phase two in itself is basically the user submits the forms. Basically, we're trying to get, we're trying to pretty much get our, not get our token in itself. We're pretty much trying to get what the user sent in. So with the browser in itself, if the browser is pretty much what the user accesses, which is our front end. And so basically it's just going to do an HTTP get again, and then we're going to get the specific input, which the user is going to give us the custom date and the custom time. And then again, we have to give the port again to the app server in itself so it knows where to go. And then from this, we have a couple different outcomes in itself, because we could already have we could already be signed in, or in this case, let's say we have no tokens. So that means we didn't go through the authentication. So the authent to Google APIs in itself, we didn't go through there. So we have to, the brains, basically the server, has to go and redirect the browser in itself, saying, okay, we do not have this information, but I can redirect you to 302. Is that's basically the verb, not the verb in itself, basically it's command. And then it's going to tell that to the browser. The browser is going to then create a request, which I signaled here, to the account.google. And then from here, the browser itself is going to say HTTP get, which is get as a verb again, and it's going to give us the exact client ID and then other informations like the client secrets and so forth. And then again, we have to give it a port to go into, because again, it doesn't know where to go to, and then it has to give it to the account Google. And then once that happens, we have two different outcomes, similar to what you wrote in yours. Shortcut if the browser is already logged in into Google. That means if it's already logged in, the account Google is just saying, okay, here's the Google form, just log in. And so that means that we're going to, it goes back to the user. The user itself has to give us specific outcomes like the username and password. That's what the login form is in the setting. And once we receive that, now Google has it, and then it goes to somewhere else, to a different, lower down. But I'm still going to stay in opt. So let's pretend, okay, that's only one. Let's go to the second one. If there's a short circuit, if the user already granted permission previously, that means we already logged in. So now it's asking us again, do we want to still give permission? If so, then we have to say, okay, it went to the account Google, we're going to grant it. We're going to say, hey, do you want to grant it permission again? And if the person says yes, okay, our user, then the user will click allow. And then the account Google receives this information. Once we get the thumbs up from account Google, we get the consent, we get a sign in. That means now we can actually start to redirect our the browser in itself, because again, we want to get to the main application, which is like what we're trying to do, trying to create both a playlist for what exactly we're doing. So like specifically in our calendar, we had to study a study playlist, top 3 recommendations, and so forth. So let's say the user has different they want to like have a specific playlist, but they don't know what time it is, or like what time they want to do it, so there's just like the default, it's all of the Google Calendar itself in that date. But if they wanted to specify the time, then they could specify it, and it's going to give a specific 3 videos. And then, so again, back to this, we're going to go into the authentic callback code, which is just the code in the state, and that's what we're going to give it. And basically it's just like permissions, like I wrote here, explicit permissions for client IDs and other scopes. States, the state is just basically a way that the CSRF can validate it. It's just basic connection of saying, okay, I was the app server, I'm the one who sent the initial stage, and Google's like, okay, like it's just a validation of saying, okay, this is where you came from. It's just a security like precaution in itself. So then after, we're going to go from the browser, it's going to have to go back and redirect it, because we have to get a specific token. So that's how we're going to ease into phase 3. But back again to this one, back to the same port, we get the code and the states from what we already got from here, from the account Google. So from here, then we're going to keep going to phase 3. Now that we add the code and the states, now we are going to see the validation, actually what we're validating. Before we only got the specific inputs or the specific code and state, now like validating itself with RSRF. So then now we're going to do it saying, okay, both server and Google checkers, great, we're good. And now we have to actually go back and find our custom date and custom time, because right now the whole process, we did something else and we just put it on a back burner as of right now. So now we have to also delete the state entry, because again, we already have the token, there's no need for it anymore because we already validated it. So let's go into the post token, which is another an HTTP verb. And this is just basically sending in the information that we received based on phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 itself is just like the connection, but like say phase 2. So then it's going to go into the host, which port you want to go to. So it's going to go to the Google APIs for authenticating. And then the content types, again, it's just trying to say, what are we going to receive? And then again, the body is the client IDs, client secrets, trying to say, where are we trying to go? As well, like this is the information we have. So it gives it to the API, or there are 2. And then if we really want to look more into it and deep into it, the client ID authentication, that's what we used in Google Cloud. And it gave us the client secrets, and the code basically represents users' permission to access this account, which was given to us previously. And then basically it gives us all the check markers that we wanted, saying, hey, we got the permission based on this, and saying, okay, now that the API is going to send back the access token. And how we talked about in class and so forth, the access token, and it's just permission to go into certain like rooms that we just had to say, or like certain areas. It's saying, okay, we, like I said, we don't have access to the person's actual password and username. It's just permission to enter, like permission to use specific specific rooms or places. So that's what happens. So now that we have the access token, that also gives us basically the cache for the access token. But anyways, then we go into save access token to memory, which is the cache like we were talking about. And now that we have that, but let's say we don't have to constantly do this or get a token again and again, because that would be terrible for the user experience and for everyone in general, because you would have to go back and forth from each different port. So we have also another way to figure this out. That's why we had the specific opt. Okay, so then we go to phase 4. Now we have the token. Now we're good. Now we have the cache. Now we don't talk about tokens. Now it's the cache because we already have this information into our disk. So then we do, if cache hits, we skip API calls and redirect with cache data. So then, because we already had a date for that, let's say we had a time and date, so it hits, we're going to use that. But then we're going to have to go into the API and to actually retrieve that information. So we have to, again, show them that we have the access token. And again, this is just the host, is just the port that we're going to. And then once we get there, then we're going to get a good signal. We got a connection signal. And then it's going to tell us, or it's going to give us the actual calendar event array, because again, we're going to a calendar. We have a calendar in YouTube. So then once it goes to the app server, then we're going to have to get the values in itself. So let's say we have to loop through it because again, it's an array. So we have to constantly go into the custom time, and we have different like if conditions, because just in case the user only wanted to have a specific date and they didn't want to give the time, we do that. Or we also have conditions where they can't, or they want to add a time and so forth. So we just want to make sure that the user, like, it doesn't just like not work in general. So that's why we have this. And then after, we're going to send it again, because we have 2 different APIs, like I said again, 2 different 2.0s. We have to send it again to YouTube. And then we get the JSON of video search results. And then after receiving this, then the app server is going to basically combine all of this. Basically the JSON, all of them are JSONs. That's the standard in general because that's what everyone's been using. It's a default. And then it's going to send it to the browser because again, the user doesn't have any information as of now. All it's done is log in and it's just puts in the date and the time if they wanted to, and that's all they have done. So now finally the user is receiving all this information, basically the results, and sending it back, saying 302, let's redirect it again. The server is redirecting back to the browser. And then the browser lands on the indexed HTML, which is just the front end again. And then it just issues like the schedules plus music cards. Because again, we're looking at like a specific, like calendar specific date. What do we have? And what are the top 3 playlists or 3 like songs we want to play? And that is basically what ends up happening. So we're going to have the HTML, which again is just the front end. We're going to have certain characteristics that could use, or certain characters it uses, and then just in case it doesn't get stretched out, and it could be viewed in like different devices, so we have that. This is just the style. Necessarily the bodies of it is going to look what the text is going to look, what the header is going to look. That's why we have it different font sizes and different details of the styles. The actual logic that comes into play, this control panel, again, what it looks like, and then this is just the input in itself. This is what we get, and then we get our parameters here, which is the dates, and then the time from the user, aka the browser. This is the front end, and from here we're going to go down and evaluate the hover. These are just the buttons in itself. This is like what can we do, what the button's going to look like in itself. Loader, spinner, again, like these are just in case so the user knows that something's happening. And then after, when it comes to the error box, something happens. Our column info, basically how our columns are going to look, how we're going to have, once I finish and compile this, you'll see the edit of it. But you'll see it. And then, so then after, we're going to go to the events. The events are going to have their own style as well. Videos are going to have their own query tags, because that's again how our server works. We check queries for the different phases depending. And then when it comes to the actual logic, medias, results, control panels, like this is just again just how it looks, the style of it. Now when we actually go into the body, we are going to have certain diva classes to make sure everyone is organized, because we're gonna have our own headers for the daily vibes, and then our own classes for different statuses, etc. Because as you can see, once we code it, you'll see how it just changed color, connects or not connects, or like different things. Like those again are different UIs in itself. And then data evaluation, again, these are just what the user sees, and this is where we're intaking it from. Again, the custom date that comes from its own label that we have up there. And then we have loaders, errors, and then 2-column results. Again, these are actually where we're displaying the results, our Google Calendar, and then pretty much the YouTube video. And so then we get the elements, because those are the methods we have to use, and then store it into our system. That's again with phase 3, where we start retrieving it from. Because in phase 1 is when we get it, but phase 3 is when we again have to look into this. So then we get the URLs, and these are just like retrieving and seeing if there's errors to our system. And then here, evaluation vibe, here is when exactly we're going to finally look into what we received. And then from here, we are going to look at the phase 2. For that, we're going to go browser to app server and then get. Again, these are just all like what's happening. It's all like HTML contents in itself. And then the rendering results, again, we're trying to get the information that we got from the events list. This is from the calendar in itself, so we're trying to make sure that we understand what's happening. And then just wrappers to make sure that all our elements are together in itself. And then we just keep on progressing, because again, this is just like, again, we're going to look at the videos. We're going to see what we have so far based on our variables itself. And then results, scroll again, like all the results are gonna given to us by the style, and we're just gonna be able to just move it up and down if we want to. Now for the server JS, we use Strike just in case we have duplicates and duplicate functions in itself. We just don't want it to just impact each other. So then we have HTTPS, FS, URL, query strings. We use the queries again to input our HTML and then our servers as well. And then our port itself is just 5501. Our clients are here. Process env, it's easier to look at and also easier to clear as well. And then so we need to make a constant state store, because again, during the process of our sequential diagram, we were going from phase 1, which is connection itself. Again, we are receiving what the person is sending us, what the user is sending us, but we're not really using it so far. We need to store the stage, so what we were given. So then we have a token cache file token.json. This is just basically telling us, okay, we're creating JSON with our token file. Like cache equal null, because right now we don't have anything. We're starting from scratch, and then we're just gonna try this. So we're gonna have this try and catch, because again, we have different things. We could have a cache in our disk, and we have to retrieve it back to memory, and so that makes we end up having to work through a different path in itself. And then if there isn't any, then we have to retrieve to like go to the next, to the authentication phase, which authenticate the first request. And then after, in the constant server, this is just again stating our stream. We need to see the readable and the writable, because now we're trying to make the browser and the server, we're trying to make a pipeline in itself. And then for now, we're just doing a queries. This allows to get a path for the queries in itself. And again, there's nothing, no interface or anything happening here. This is just building off of it. Console.hrroutes. This is just telling us where we're going to verify. It's just a debugger in itself, just for me to use it, but also you can see what's happening. And then phase 1 is the browser and app server connection. So this is just us. Like again, we're using the HTTP GET in itself. It's manually opening the index HTML and stream it down to the socket. So that's what it's doing with the function. It's reading it. It's reading it here, and then it's writing it as well. And then we end it if there's an issue, if there's something missing. So, and then it tells us the content types and it takes out HTML, which you can also see in my sequential diagram in the beginning. And then phase 2, we have to retrieve the information from the browser via the HTTP GET. So we have to go from here. We have to look at the queries in itself that we had previously, and then like create another variable for it, like custom date. And then in case we already have access to the code on our disk, we have to go into our memory via another pipeline. Will make us go straight to phase 4. Because if we already had the token, then that means that we already went through login, authenticating everything. We don't need to go back. So that's just another way we can go. And then generating a random cryptography. And that's the issue for me. It's like I could say crypto, but then this is just like randomization. We're just going to make it so we can authenticate it. Not authenticate it, we're going to validate it via phase 3. So, and then after phase 3, you need to keep what the user gave to us, and that's why we're making a store. Like, this is our stage. Because again, we didn't actually store it, we're just making the connection. With phase 1, we made a connection with the browser and the app server, but we have yet to store it. So then again, this is like a debugger, builds authenticational URL so the browser can send the user to a Google login, redirect the info. That's where the login is. Again, these are all just readables in itself. It's just like allowing us to do it. And then redirect forces to the browser to leave the site. Because again, we have to leave the site because we need to be redirected. The app server does not give us the permission. It's a Google account in itself. So then we result end, it stops the writability, and then we go to phase 3. CRF, validations and tokens exchange. The tokens will be given to the server. That is where we go back to the crypto random bytes, and then the stage as well. So again, we look at the queries code, query state, again its own variable. We check if they're both valid with phase 3 and phase 2. Back into this one here, and then we look at other specifications of the state right here. So then after, we have to make sure that once we are valid, now the system itself could, or basically Google account can give us like a token in itself. But that will keep on going from here because it can have mismatch. So we have to make sure like if it doesn't match up, then it didn't come from the server app. So both of them have to match up. So from using state tickets to get the user's data from our server, we're doing that. We delete our specific state because we don't want another system or any other like person to use our state to get a token in itself. So then the CR validation recovers dates, custom date, custom time in itself. And again, we're preparing a secure server to server post request. So post request in itself, you're just going to send in information to it. And then for token options, these are just specific tokens for both of them, I believe. So, and then the secret channels results from servers to Google to trade the receipts for real tokens. So the receipts in itself are the stages again. So it says, okay, let me look at the stage. We have them. We validated them. Yes, now we are given a token. And via the token, we have to ensure that the request, we have to go through like chunks of data because again, in the Google Calendar, we get a different amount of informations, different amount of YouTube as well. So once the entire package was finished downloading, then we end it. And then we have to say, right, so we wrote all the context types that we were given. If there's token bodies parsing error, then we stop it. So then we go to access tokens. We're like, okay, we have the tokens. Let's see what we have so far. If the token exchange failed, then we stop. And so and then the entire packet has finished downloading. And from here, we're going to get the raw data in itself. And again, the content type. And then we're going to see, just in case there's an error in itself, we'll do the constant access token, which is, again, so if phase 3 doesn't work, we get the token exchange failed, and then we just spit the raw data. And then, so let's say that we have the token, we already logged in, they save the token on our app memories and write it down to our disk, so the user has to log in next time. So I'm going to show an example. When I execute this code, you'll see how I don't have to log in, authenticate myself again and again. So then we have, again, the debugger in itself. Again, automatically triggers phase 4. Because we already had this, like, we want to ensure the seamless flow, like I said before previously. So then, after this, we're going to, this is just basically, it's just like crashing errors. And then we have the function run pipeline in itself. We're setting up for the exact data types, for data and time the user wants. So what blocks we're going to search for in itself. And then this is just specific parameters, so full meter, etc. This is just like what we're getting, so we can actually understand what the HTML file was telling us before. And then after this, we're gonna have our cache. We created like basically a unique fingerprint for that specific time block, and we check our disk. We already did the search today, so we send the saved file on, so we skip the API wait time, so we don't have to wait because it gets stored. And then again, our reading file or the stream is still going. Cache hits, serve Snapchat, what we had before, the previous information we had in our cache. And then, so if we didn't have a shortcut saved, then we have to make a network request for the Google Calendar to get the user schedule. Back going to our APIs, and then this is where the synchronization pipeline request came into. We're using the queries, going into there, getting stringified, figuring out exactly what we need, and then we're going to get the URL of the calendar, and then we're going to be making the server, not the server, it's just like a request again, so it's like opening up the pipe, and then we're getting the chunks of information because it could be a bunch of different information. And then after, we're going to ensure that if the token broke, we delete our cache and force them to log in again. And then after this is just the error checkers. Again, the items going to our data type. And then we're going to just iterate from and find out all the events that we had. And then the logic behind the user inputs, so we're missing time, but we have data. So again, these are just the if conditions in itself, if we specify the time, if we don't specify the time, and so forth. If time event length is greater than 0, these are just basic formats. And then again, we have our algorithm on a default activity, so we're using keywords, workout, run, etc. You'll see the example I do on March 18th. And then phase 4, context mapping and YouTube queries. So now we're bringing all our information that we had, we're going to submit it out. So now we have to end up packaging it up. So here, calendar first, we fire nation. This is after the response, but we'll see the packaging in a second after every single pipeline starts running, with the items as well, with the logic of the algorithm. And then after then, we have to write down the cache Snapchat written just in case, just to keep it if we want to use it again. And then we have to send the package straight to the browser. And then that's pretty much the final information. It goes to URL and sends to a browser, and the server starts. And this is where we can actually click the code. So again, every single phase goes against where a sequential diagram. I can also provide it again, but I will keep it at the front. So you can see during the second phase retrieves, again, every single phase we try out specific conditions. If we can, then we're going to go to a different phase in our code. If not, then we have to go through it and go through the browser to the server app and then back to it to get a connection from it, with each stage in code for phase 2. I think phase 2 and 3 as well. So I will run the code. So let's do server.js. So no, so it says no existing token, user needs to authenticate. So we press the link. I already have a time or date in place, so 2026. We'll have, let's not specify a time so far. Let's evaluate my vibe. We're gonna allow YouTube and Google Calendar. That gives us every single thing we're doing that day. Study, workout, commute, chess, and then we can press on any one of these links and then go to YouTube in itself. The internet has an issue, but that's what it does. Press on the link and then you can play it as well. So then let's say you want to specify the time, 2026. Let's do 10 a.m. So as you can see, the closest thing is to workout. It also has something so we can it has a condition, so we can find the closest parameter as well. So like, okay, 10 o'clock, we're still working out. It gives us songs for it. And let's say I want to pick for around this time. So let's say 2026, not 20, but evaluate. Nothing pops up. We still have the previous information. So let's say 5/26/2026. We have project video and sleep. We have different videos for that as well. We want to specify a specific format, we can as well. And then I also made sure we can only keep the parameters to AA. We're still connected. And then we would go to different, like, again, our diagram, we would not have to reconnect again. We would go straight to another phase because we already have the token in itself. So phase 4.